All right, good day, class. Today we will be discussing the module 6, which is the unearthing the unknown via experimentation. That is a first lesson for our third monthly exam, module 6, what and how to collect data. So this is what we're going to talk about. Okay. So first, we wanted to achieve this objective, the essential of conducting an experiment, what kind of data to collect and how to collect data. Of course, at the end of the lesson, we have to gather and analyze data with intellectual honesty using suitable techniques. And of course, we have to validate data obtained from experiments. And most of all, we have to preserve the integrity of data collected. So hopefully we can achieve this objective at the end of our lesson. We can only achieve that class with your participation and cooperation in this lesson. Okay? So, what kind of data to collect and how to collect data? That's the question in there. So, actually, class, data can be obtained either by observation or by experimentation. So the essential of conducting experiment, what kind of data to collect and how to collect data. Actually, class, data, just like what I said, data can be obtained either by observation or by experimentation. What do you mean by that? Depending on the research theme, like your tema or course of study, like in the social sciences, psychology, marketing, communication, and other similar discipline, of course, data gathering is made possible through observing. It can be surveying and interviewing as well because this discipline rely on the subject's behavior, attitude, perceptions, and feelings. So that's very clear. On the other hand, class, in such discipline like a chemistry, physics, engineering, biology, and food science, experiments are necessary to extract target data, not observation. So that's the reason why we have to understand how to collect data. So just like what I said earlier, it can only happen based on the team that you are in. Okay. So now let's move on with questionnaires and survey. Questionnaires and survey forms. Questionnaires and survey forms must obtain questions, of course, or queries raised in a straightforward manner and concise. Okay. Um, concise as possible because such that target information would easily be obtained. Furthermore, class, the interview or survey must only take at least 5 to 10 minutes of the interviewer's time. Remember, their time is also valuable, so you have to consider it as well. Okay. So at this particular stage class, I assume that just like what I said, I'm speaking in general. Now, when I speak in general, I may not have provide you a specific example that could definitely relate to the topic that you have. But of course, this is applicable to any. Make sure that you have to connect your topic to this subject or your title to the topic that I am just discussing. Okay, that's what I mean. All right. So at this stage, class, you must have already identified who the interviewees or subject will be, and of course, how many depends. It depends on the title that you have. It depends of uh, the qualification and numbers of sample that you want to. Okay. So in gathering data, interviewees or subject must be fully aware of the process and oriented about the purpose of the survey or interview. Make sure, class, not to consume their time or your time as well. Make sure that your interviewees are all oriented and are fully aware about the questions or about what really happening so that they are prepared and are ready as well. So it really gives you or save you an ample time. Okay. So aside from that class, disclaimer or waiver, and full disclosure forms must be signed by the concerned parties before the interview or survey. Moreover, the interviewer's right should always prevail, protected and respected until the interview or survey is completed. Of course, you have to protect yourself and as well as the your interviewees, right? And whatever happens in there, like whatever answer whatever whatever answer they put on the survey or their questions, then please do not manipulate it. Make sure that it really comes from them and sincerely answered based on what they observe or based on their knowledge. uh, um, then you don't have any right to to manipulate it. Okay, just let it be. All right, so just respect whatever answer they want to put in your survey. Okay. And next is, in other words, class, every important detail must be explicitly conveyed and the mutual understanding exists between the two parties. That is actually very important in there. Okay. So immersion brings about greater awareness about people, community, and everything around you. The very essence of knowing detail and learning information about in a specific topic or subject matter can be generated through observation. You see that? It can also, observation is very helpful as well for you to be able to collect data, right? Next, we have what we call guides. What are the guidelines or guide questions should be taken from those interviewees? So try to consider this one. What information are you trying to find out? What would be based on your own that would be based on your own observation? Who will be included in this observation? When is the best time to conduct the observation? Where do you want this observation to take place? Okay. How are you going to document these observations? Who will be the most trustworthy people to carry out these observations? Make sure they are qualified to the qualifications that you are looking for when you are conducting a survey or maybe a sample or interviewees, just to make sure that they are the one who help you out to meet your objective. Okay. So oftentimes you have to take a great leap to get the desired answer to your questions. Performing experiment can be quite risky and time consuming, but it would enable you to get as much needed information under controlled conditions. So this is actually a best way for you to not to consume too much of your time and money. Observation is very important to collect data, but again, it's case to case basis. All right. So now let's talk about experimentation. Remember, class, there are two ways in getting how or in getting a data. Okay, first we have observation, and the second one is experimentation. It depends on the team that you are in. Okay, so when we say experimentation, on the other note, data collection via experimentation involves work performed inside a laboratory. Of course, experimentation, what do we expect? It is performed inside the laboratory. Essentially, those high scientific and technological research teams commonly employ laboratory work, that is, those requiring the use of advanced analytical equipment and are subjected to a series of experiments. But then again, if you are conducting an experimentation, make sure that you ask permission to your science teacher, or rest assured that you have to rest assured that the teacher or the facilitator will help you out just in case that it is necessary. It is necessary that you have to perform experimentation, things like that, but you have to ask permission ahead of time so that they can schedule you when you are going to use our laboratory. Okay. So the research topics being investigated are not commonly witnessed phenomena. This phenomena can be those that are already part of the people's like daily lives, but in which mechanism have not been fully understood. So that's why you have to conduct an experimentation. Or the research topic could really be complex and unusual occurrence that could lead to a big discovery. So this is one of the advantage of having experimentation. You have to discover something, diba? So here, the result will be mostly qualitative and quantitative in nature. What do you mean by qualitative and quantitative in nature? When I say qualitative or quantitative research, deals with numbers and statistics. So with qualitative research deals with words and meanings. That's why you have to conduct it based on probably observation. While the quantitative methods allow you to attest a hypothesis by systematically collecting and, of course, analyzing data, while qualitative methods allow you to explore ideas and experiences in depth, no? Meaning in medyo sa malalim na paraan at malalim na proseso. Kaya sa experimentation class ay talaga namang we can consider that we have to put this qualitative and quantitative in nature. Okay? Very clear yan. So, qualitative and quantitative in nature, further validation is necessary before they are accepted as a scientifically correct. Kailangan ulitin natin, no? Meaning, not just uulitin, but we have to double check just to make sure, di ba? The very purpose of doing experiments boils down to authenticating your hypothesis. Make sure that the first test you can check it on the second test if they come out the same hypothesis. But the purpose of this is just to make sure that you will be rechecking your hypothesis. Okay, so experiments are born out of the what if questions, the need to conduct a series of experimental work. Variables are often varied systematically and logically, and then tried and tested in the laboratory to bring out some result. Okay, so class, in addition, no, the what if questions are guide questions that will assist in instituting like the cause and effect relationship among and within the variables being examined. Yun naman ang purpose natin dito. That's why we have to check it twice, or we have to re, you know, ulitin natin ng dalawang beses as much as possible. Or kung hindi ka pa satisfied dyan, you can actually try another test, di ba? So, um, if you will consider the above, I mean, what are the guide questions should be taken to assess research requiring experimentation? Huh? What are the guide questions should be taken to assess a research requiring experimentation? Of course, ask yourself, what information were the researcher trying to look for from the experiment? Bakit ka ba nag-experimento, right? Or nagkakandak ng experiment? And what was the subject of their experiment? Which condition did the researcher have to consider in their experiment? And of course, how was the experiment conducted? Was in vitro or in vivo? So if you are confused, what was the difference between the two class? In refers to vivo means when research or work is done with or within an entire, like for example, living organism, can include studies in animals, models, or human clinical trials, while the other hand, vitro is used to describe work that's performed outside of a living organism. This can include studying cells in culture or method of testing the antibiotic sensitivity of bacteria. So, pag sinabi nating vivo refers within. Okay, nasa loob siya ng entire living organism. Pag sinabi naman nating vitro, that is outside of the particular living organism. So definitely in there, you have an idea now what are the how you will be going to conduct your experiment. Is it in the form of vitro or in vivo? Okay. And of course, what was the laboratory environment like when the experiment were conducted? How did they document the results of the experiment? Okay. So these are the things that you have to uh, consider. Okay. Next, repeatability and reproducibility of experimental data. Reproducible data arise from within sample measurements. So how are we going to do that? Experimentation mandates that data obtained be reproducible or repeatable. Okay? So anong ibig sabihin yan? Pag sinabi nating reproducible data, it's arise from within sample measurements. Pag sinabi naman nating repeatable data are those obtained from between sample runs. Repeatably class demonstrate the precision of the different measurements or sinasabi nating replicates, no? Ang sinasabi nating uulitin. Conducted by the same person using the same set of equipment and materials, all performed with a short period. So if you are working on experiment, nagets nagets ba yon? So ang pag sinabi nating ulitin ko lang pag sinabi nating class na replicates, no? Pag sinabi nating replicates in research, magre-reproduce ka lang. Parang uulitin mo din just to make sure, no, na tama yung ginagawa mo. Okay? So now let's move on. Repeatability demonstrate the precision of the different measurement conducted by the same person, things like that. If you are working on an experiment, it is highly desirable that you repeat the procedure for at least 3 trials to ensure precision. Okay. Uh, later on, I will explain what precision is all about, just to make sure that we are on the same page or we are on the same page. On the contrary, reproducibility indicates the ruggedness and robustness of the analytical procedure or methodology used, such that even when other groups of researcher probably adopt the exactly the same or less data would be precisely I'm sorry, exactly the same or less data. Tama na ba? Saan na ba ako? Repeatable data are those obtained from between sample runs. Repeatability demonstrate the precision of the different measurements, meaning replicates conducted by the same person using the same set of equipment and material, all performed within a short period of time. Okay. Next, we have working an experiment. Highly desirable that you repeat the procedure for at least 3 trials to ensure precision. On the contrary, reproducibility indicates the ruggedness and robustness of the analytical procedure or methodology used, such that even when other groups of researchers adopt exactly the same method using their own set of equipment and materials conducted at a different time, more or less data would precisely within the acceptable range. Okay? So, again, pag sinabi naman nating reproducibility gives you the assurance that the chosen method or procedure fits that of your intended application, as you can reproduce what other researcher have produced and reported. Otherwise, you have to evaluate the result and may have to consider other procedures that will give you precise and acceptable result with regard to your own application. So remember, class, you are not just testing um, the materials or the data that you have, but ensuring as well that the method that you are using is also applicable to that and effective as well. That's why you have to come up with 3 times of experimenting just to make sure that you come out the same result or most probably nearer to the precise or nearer to the objective that you have. Okay, so there. Benchmarking based on the characteristic of your standard or node models allow you to assess your own accuracy and the quality of your performance. So the question is there, classes, accuracy and precisions of experiment. Ano ba yung tinatawag natin ditong precision? Ayan yung tanong, okay? So, I will explain that. What is the precision? Kasi nga, I will explain naman further. Okay? So, pag sinabi kasi natin, class, na uh, precision, it, de it depends. Wait lang. Wait lang. So, pag sinabi lang natin precision, class, if the quality or condition or fact of being exact and accurate, kaya nga may tinatawag tayong accuracy and precision of experiment, are they accurate? Are they near to exact result or yung uh, objective mo? So, ganun yung ibig sabihin natin. So, we wanted to make sure that it's exactly or sharply defined or stated, things like that, no? Well, anyway, people often say practice makes perfect. Likewise, the conduct of observation and experimentation must be repeatedly done to ensure accuracy and precision in measurement of variables. So if you want to check your variables, diba, then we wanted to make sure that you have to try and try until you succeed, right? Kaya nga meron sabi dito, practice makes perfect. Just to make sure that you want to gather a an experiment mo ay kailangan masubok or masukat yung kanyang effectivity, yung accuracy na tinatawag natin, no? Or precision. Yan. Kailangan ng practice in there and several trial just to make sure that you will be meeting all those. Okay? So, how would you know that you are observing experimentally is accurate and precise? No, kaya nga siya precision. During your experiment, a certified reference materials is treated the same manner as applied to your own set of example. Diba? A certified reference material or a standard or a reference is one in which its properties have already been established. Again, certified, no, and by a reputable institution as well. So the choice of the reference material or the standard should be that it possesses characteristic or properties almost similar to your own sample and amenable to your sample design and treatment condition. So the closeness of your experimental data to the certified true value is assist that we could definitely determine as accuracy. Okay? Accuracy. Sabi dito, benchmarking based on the characteristic of standards or known models allow you to assess your own accuracy and the quality of your performance, which is true naman, right? So the use of standard reference materials also help you to gauge, to understand things being examined, such as the influence of some factors on your own setup or your new sample material by looking into the changes or response related from the response of your standard or reference. Okay? So now, let's talk about how you will be going to controls in experiments or control. So control in experiments, what do you mean by that? Besides using standard, of course, and reference materials, a control always accompanies every experiment, diba? The control class will serve as a means of assessing whether or not contamination is present during the measurement. No, so we don't want any contamination to ruin our experiment. So we want to make sure all the materials that we need is in there and clean and sanitize just to make sure that there is no other chemicals na hahalo dyan. Okay? So the controller blank, we call it like placebo, contains no sample of the target under investigation. It could be just the metrics or any other components in the measurement other than the material of interest, which is the subject of ongoing measurement or experiment. As expected from the controller blank, the absence of a significant response or signal from the control or blank means that the measurement is free from the contamination or interference, no? Na wala talagang ahad lang dyan. So, ang pag sinabi kasi nating placebo, no, para siyang make sure that when you are conducting an experiment, parang yung bang, ano ba yung other terms of uh, placebo? Kasi medyo baka hindi nyo alam what the placebo means, no? Parang, kasi parang ang placebo is like a substance or treatment which is designed to have no therapeutic value. No. I think what is the, hold on. So, kailangan yung, pag sinabi kasi parang placebo class means parang wala siyang, kaya nga parang blank, no? Parang it cannot interfere or this substance is, I mean, there's no other substance at all that may probably affect your experiment. Okay, that's what placebo is all about. And yeah, so now the question in there is, what is what do you mean by precession, diba? So, observation and experimental data must at all times exhibit integrity, credibility, and trustworthiness. Likewise, a highly accurate, precise, reproducible, and repeatable set of data gives credence and veracity to the scientific inquiry and investigation process. So make sure, class, that we have this kind of characteristic as a researcher. You have to make sure that whatever happens, whatever be the result, make sure that you never manipulate it. Okay? You never falsify those or anything like that. Make sure that you have this kind of character for you to become a good researcher and to come up with an honest result, right? So what is precision? It refers to the closeness of your experimental data with one another. These data may come from various replicates. So the closer your experimental data to one another, the higher your level of precision. So sa madaling salita, kanina pa natin binabanggit yung precision or yung precise. It refers to the closeness, no? Yung malapit sa iyong experimental data. No? The moment that it's nearer or closest to or closer to your data, then the higher level of precision you have. Okay. Next, we have relative standard deviation. What do you mean by that? It refers to the poor precision and a term in statistics characterized by a set of data is small or large when compared to the mean. Meaning, the relative standard deviation can tell you how precise the average of your result is. Okay? So parang ganun lang siya. So sa madaling salita, poor precision, medyo malayo. Medyo hindi siya close doon sa data. Okay? So now we have what we call ethical consideration in the conduct of experiments. Remember, class, ethical considerations must be in place uh, at all times. The conduct of an inquiry, investigation, or immersion must be strongly guided by ethical standards. Bakit ba kailangan natin itong mga ethical standards na to? What do you mean by ethical standards? I think that's the question. So, ethic implies the activities pertinent to the conduct of inquiry, investigation, and immersion must always be fair, considerate, and compliant with standard policies and guidelines. Dapat ganito talaga yon. At ganyan talaga siya dapat, class. Okay? So, what do you mean by that? Well, when we say ethical consideration, when you are conducting an experiment, be aware that ethical consideration must be strictly observed in the following experimental aspect. Number one, specific experimental procedure to be adopted. Number two, um, Number two is safe conduct of experiment. Three, safe handling and disposal of test animals. Number four, development of instrumental parameters. Most of the time class, ang ginagamit nating sample natin ay yung mga animals, dyan tayo sila yung ginagiging ano natin, parang testing materials or sabihin natin sila yung doon tayo nagkakandak ng experiment natin sa mga animals, things like that. So, of course, they have an animal's right. So, we have to make sure that we have to follow guidelines para naman hindi masayang yung pagod nyo at wala kayong na-violate na law against animals or anything. Okay. Next, never plagiarize experimental procedure. What do you mean by that? If you must adopt a method developed by other research terms, remember to acknowledge them in your reports. Kasi getting their parang you're getting their intellectual property. So make sure that you have to give credit, no, just in case that it's relevant or necessary to your topic. Na kailangan mo talaga yan just to strengthen your research. Go ahead, no problem, as long as there is a credit, no? And next, we have secure necessary permits or license with regard to the use of test animals and ensure that the policies are enforced in every step of the experiment. So, meron din ganon. Lalo na kung nagtatrabaho na talaga tayo sa sa mundo ng uh, or naging isang tunay na researcher ka na. Okay? And also, class, before performing an experiment, be ready to undergo induction training. When I say induction training, yung mga introduction training, no, paano gumamit ng mga uh, ng laboratory. So, what do you mean by that, no? Meaning, you have to undergo training to a safety aspect of working in the laboratory, especially when you're handling hazardous or toxic and flammable chemicals, or if you will be exposed to radiation such as X-ray and laser procedures. Make sure that you have a proper training for that because it's very important. It's very important that you are safe, that you know what to do. When you are exposed to those kind of materials, okay, or chemicals rather. And next is, of course, to safeguard the quality of your analytical data. Have someone knowledgeable adequately orient your own the proper use and maintenance of analytical and advanced equipment. And most important of all, never fabricate and never falsify experimental data. So, bakit naman, sir? Of course, there is no right or wrong answer in data, right? Collected through experiment. Then it is only that some data may not be what you have expected them to be in accordance with your hypothesis. But even if this is the case, no, you still have to explain why and how you have gathered such data. This will still be useful to the scientific community as reference. So therefore, there is no need for you to what? To falsify and fabricate, because at the end of the day, you will be explaining why you come up with that result. Okay? So make sure, I'm sorry, you have also to refer to past studies. What do you mean by that? Refer to past studies with somewhat unlikely information to enable other researchers to carefully consider what factors may have contributed and influenced the results, and of course to give them option to pursue another approach maybe. So thus time, money, and effort will not be wasted, diba? And last, make sure You document your result thoroughly and appropriately, obtain clear copies or make backup electronic copies of very important data, systematize the recording and all your data and log them on your laboratory notebook. Okay? Para naman documented and you have an evidences. And the process that you undergone, di ba, mga ganyan. So now class, we already talked about this lesson. So we will be discussing more of this tomorrow. So make sure that if you have like a question, then let's just spark your question. We'll talk about this next meeting. But by the way, class, kindly share your thoughts. Have you had the chance to decide on the basis of your moral viewpoint and ethical conviction? Share your experience about it in the comment section below with your last name. Okay. Again, answer your question in the comment section. That will serve as well as your attendance, and that will serve as your participation today. We wanted to make sure that you watch the video in full and answer the questions. Have you had a chance to decide on the basis of your moral viewpoint and ethical conviction? Now you have to share your experience in the comment section. So see you next meeting. Goodbye and thank you. I hope you have a great day to all of you. Bye bye for now.